Am I recording? Hello again, it's me Chaz back with another video, and this is my episode 3 video of my best and worst series. Basically, every month or every international break, I will pick my 5 nations that I believe played well and my 5 nations that I believe that played poorly at the international break, but mainly the teams that played in World Cup qualifying games. So no friendlies or nation leagues matches. This video is a little bit late, but this is about the nations that played during the November international break in the World Cup qualifiers. And as usual, I'll start with the 5th nation I believe played poorly compared to the 4 nations I believe that played even worse than they have. So I will start with the first team that I believe played poor. So at number 5, that would be North Korea. Now, North Korea had 2 matches and they lost their 2 games. First against Iran, where they lost 3-2. They almost was on the verge of doing a comeback after Iran had a man sent off. Iran was leading 3-0 in the first half. North Korea managed to score another 2 goals to make it 3-2. Wasn't enough. Iran still was able to win. It was a decent comeback from North Korea, but still not enough. Again, they also played against Uzbekistan a week later, where they were defeated 1-0. They also missed the penalty. That's the second time they missed the penalty against Uzbekistan in the World Cup qualifiers. That's now 2 losses for them. They have failed to win 1 game now in Group A, and they are bottom of the table, 11 points behind second place. And that is a World Cup qualifying spot, first and second. Now, in Group A, Iran can now no longer finish outside of a 4th round spot, which would put them into the 4th round or an automatic qualifying spot, first and second, to go through to the World Cup, which now leaves North Korea with only 1 spot up for grabs for them if they were going to qualify for the World Cup. And they're 11 points off of Uzbekistan. They are 5 points off 4th round, so 4th spot or 3rd. Very tough for them. I think the only way that North Korea could qualify is going through to the 4th round. Their next game is against Qatar. Qatar is above them. If they somehow manage to get a win there, they could really put themselves back in the run for at least a 4th round spot. North Korea has competed at the World Cup 2 times, and their best performance was in 1966, where they became the first Asian team to reach the quarterfinals of a World Cup. And in my personal opinion, I think performance-wise, I personally believe North Korea's 1966 run is the best performance of any team from Asia. All right, now I'm going to move on to the number 5th team on the best side, nations that I believe played well at the November international break for World Cup qualifiers. And sticking with the AFC and in Group A, United Arab Emirates, who had 2 home wins, first beating Kyrgyzstan 3-0 and then defeating Qatar 5-0. That's the second time United Arab Emirates was able to beat the 2022 World Cup hosts. 2 wins, great for them. They are now 3rd in the table, 6 points behind first and 3 points behind second. So Iran's first and Uzbekistan are second. So now they're just 3 points off second place, which is the automatic World Cup qualifying spot. Good win for them. wins for them. Their next match will be against Iran, so that's a big one, big game for them. Those matches will be played in March, just like the match between Qatar and North Korea. The AFC will pick up again in March of next year, 2025. The United Arab Emirates only made one appearance at the World Cup, and that was in Italy 90, where they were in the group stage, didn't make it outside the group. So it's been a very long wait for them. If they are able to get back to the World Cup, again in a good position, still only 3 points behind Uzbekistan, and they will have to play Uzbekistan again. And again, they're playing Iran, so the top two teams. These are the points. These are the games they need to win to help them get to return to the World Cup. And again, their match will be played in March. Okay, we're going to return to the teams that played poorly. And at number 4, this may be a bit harsh, but I got to go with Papua New Guinea in the OFC. My main reasons is because the last 2 games Papua New Guinea were playing in, they were home ties. They played against Fiji where they drew 3-3, and it was the last minute after going up, their heads dropped 3-2. They were leading, just straight away Fiji was able to equalize, making it 3-3. Now they went on to play some Solomon Islands afterwards, but the game between New Caledonia and Fiji, so New Caledonia and Fiji played before, that was a draw. That sealed Papua New Guinea's fate. They couldn't qualify. Heads dropped, didn't make the crowd go away in a positive high, I guess. So another loss. They lost to Solomon Islands 2-1. Again, both games were all in Papua New Guinea. So I think they should have at least managed to make it past out of the group, personally. So yeah, that's why I got Papua New Guinea in 4th, and they are now eliminated from the World Cup qualifiers. Maybe in 2030 they would have a better chance, but they were eliminated. Okay, let's go back to the teams that I do believe played well. So at number 4, on the positive side, on good, it's got to be Ecuador. Ecuador had 2 great wins. First, defeating Bolivia 4-0. That's a home win. And then defeating Colombia 1-0 away. Great results for them. That's 5 clean sheets in a row as well for Ecuador, and they have moved into 3rd place. They have the least amount of goals have been scored against them in the CONMEBOL World Cup qualifiers this year. This campaign. They are 6 points clear of the playoff spot, 7 points clear of direct elimination. They're in a great position to qualify for another World Cup. Ecuador, and I mentioned in my CONMEBOL Match Day 12 video that they were deducted 3 points. If they did have their 3 points, they would have been 2nd in the table right now. So it's great performance from Ecuador so far. Looks like they will qualify for another World Cup. They next game in March will be against Venezuela, who are currently 8th in the table. So a big game for both teams there. Ecuador has qualified for 4 World Cups, and their best performance at a World Cup was the 2006 World Cup in Germany, where they reached the round of 16. So yeah, let's move on to the team that I believe played poorly. And I mentioned them slightly earlier. They will be playing Ecuador in March, and that is going to have to be Venezuela. So still in the CONMEBOL. They did have a 1-1 draw against Brazil where they were losing 1-0. It was a good result for them. But they lost to bottom of the table at the time, Chile 4-2 away. and that's one draw and one loss in their last two games. They have failed to win a game in 8. So since match day 4 of last year, very poor for them in the Commonwealth Bell anyway. So it's been poor for them, and because of those poor performances, they've dropped down to 8th. So they were at one point before these World Cup qualifiers started back again in September. They were in a really good position. Now they've dropped out of qualifying whatsoever. They're not even in a playoff spot. They are now 5 points off the World Cup qualifying positions. That is 6th. And they're a point off of 7th place, which is a playoff spot. So they've still got a chance in the playoffs. As mentioned, their next game in March will be against Ecuador. So a big game for them. See what happens. Venezuela are the only team in the Commonwealth Bell to never qualify for a World Cup. And this is probably going to be their best chance to qualify for one. Maybe 2030 as well, since I believe Argentina, Uruguay and Paraguay will most likely get in as anniversary hosts. Anyway, that was third in teams that I believe played poorly. That's Venezuela. And now a team that I believe played well. Back to the AFC, and that is in Iran. Again, another nation in Group A of the AFC. Currently top of their table in Group A. Though I would say November was a little harder for them. I mentioned about their match against North Korea earlier. They were leading 3-2, had a man 3-0, sorry, in the first half, had a man sent off. North Korea almost did a comeback, but maintained it to be 3-2. Similar in a game between Kyrgyzstan. And the difference is Iran were 2-0 up and Kyrgyzstan did manage to do a comeback. 2-2 weren't enough though, as Moon managed to give Iran the lead and finishing it at 3-2 in that match. Those were two tough away victories for Iran, which makes them still be top of their group, but it also means that they cannot be eliminated at this stage. So they can't drop below 4th in their group. Iran are also only one of 3 teams in the AFC who has not been defeated at the World Cup qualifiers. It's really good for them, Iran. They do have a tough game, though, against the United Arab Emirates in March. UAE are third. I would say this, though, a win for them will most likely see Iran qualify. And it's most likely Iran will probably qualify in March for the World Cup, being, I believe, in March, being one of the only teams to qualify for the World Cup outside of the host nations. All right, back to the negative. So, second, who I believe, a nation that I believe played poorly, and that's sticking to the AFC, that will have to be Saudi Arabia, who on their away visits, they failed to score twice. They drew 0-0 with Australia, had a goal ruled out by VAR at the end, which I thought was a perfectly fine goal, but still was ruled out. And then they lost to Indonesia 2-0. Poor results for them there. They've also failed to score a goal in their group in 4 games. The last time they scored, I believe, was against China, who they will be going up against next in March. But these results has made them drop into 4th in Group C. They are still in a position to qualify for the 4th round of the World Cup qualifiers in the AFC. With that said, they're level on points with both China and Bahrain, who are in the elimination spots, and they are level on points with Indonesia, who are above them. as well as being a point though behind Australia. So it's not all doom and gloom, but they had two poor results there, and that's why I have to put Saudi Arabia in second. Now, Saudi Arabia has now officially become the host of the 2034 World Cup. So they need to qualify. It's progress. They need to qualify for the next two World Cups. It looks really good for when they go into the 2034 World Cup as hosts. Saudi Arabia has qualified for six World Cups, four in a row. Their best performance was in the 1994 World Cup, which the USA did host. They reached the round of 16 in that World Cup. So a return to the USA for Saudi Arabia may be positive, may be really good for them to do further than they have before at a World Cup. Yep. So as mentioned, Saudi Arabia will go up against China in March. All right. Sticking to that same group, so there's still the AFC. It's got to be Japan, who I have as second, as a team nation that I believe has done fantastic in their November break. They went to back-to-back wins. They've defeated Indonesia 4-0 and then China 3-1, both away games. They are just like Iran, they have also been unbeaten. They've been unbeaten in the AFC World Cup qualifiers. And like Iran, they cannot drop below fourth. So they cannot be eliminated at this stage. Their next game is against Bahrain. To mention as well, Japan are 10 points clear of the fourth round spots and 9 points clear of Australia, who are second. So it's looking really good for Japan. They've been playing so well in the World Cup qualifiers. And I think just like Iran, they will qualify for the World Cup in March at the earliest. I think, I won't say it's guaranteed, but it's looking that way. Again, Japan will take on Bahrain next. All right. And speaking of Bahrain, I have Bahrain as the team that I believe had a poor November international break. So that's the top team I believe had the poor one. They were defeated by China, and that brought China back into the run-in for the World Cup qualifiers. And they also drew with Australia at the last minute. So that's a one loss, one draw for them, both at home. And they have failed to win a game in 5 now. It's not looking good for them at all, Bahrain. With that said, similar to Saudi Arabia, yes, they dropped out of the fourth round spots, but they're still only a point behind Australia. Group C of the AFC World Cup qualifiers second round. Outside of Japan, who, like I mentioned in the past, are doing their own thing. That group is extremely tight, and anything can happen by March time. And again, that wouldn't even decide anything. If anything, in March, it would just probably confirm that Japan will qualify. So, as mentioned, even though these are poor results from Bahrain and they've dropped out, they're not in a horrible position. They're still only a point behind Australia, but it's definitely looking tough, especially if they fail to have won a game in their past 5. Not since their match against Australia originally, where they won. All right, Bahrain will go up against Japan. Again, that's tough, but we'll see what happens with them. Okay, and now the team that I believe had the best international break in November regarding the World Cup qualifiers, and that is New Zealand of the OFC. They scored 8 goals in 2 games. First defeating Vanuatu 8-1 and then defeating Samoa 8-0. Great wins for them. 18 plus goal difference for New Zealand. Their next game will be against Fiji, and that is that will be the third round in the OFC. It's the knockout rounds now, where it's 2 games left for New Zealand. If they win their next 2 games, then they will qualify for the World Cup, and that would be official. So I believe Newcastle. I believe New Zealand will most likely qualify for the World Cup in March. And in March, it would be guaranteed that a nation from the OFC would qualify for the World Cup. And again, it's kind of obvious in a way, or it's expected that New Zealand would do this well in the OFC and score as many goals as they have. But I still put New Zealand above because I think they went a bit even beyond what they should do, personally, scoring that many goals. I think. They're up against Fiji next. And again, it looks like they will most likely qualify for the World Cup. And New Zealand has qualified for 2 World Cups in the past. Last World Cup they qualified was in South Africa in 2010. And with a sort of guaranteed spot, it looks like, in the OFC, if it stays like this in the future, I see New Zealand qualifying for more World Cups on a regular basis. Maybe more investment into those other nations. Again, it's a population thing. Although Papua New Guinea has quite a big population themselves, again, it's the money, the investments into football and that. And see how a nation would improve on their chances to qualify for the World Cup. I personally always think there's 3 factors into a nation when it comes to football: resources, popularity in the sport, and population. I think those 3 factors do matter, but sometimes nations don't necessarily need to have all 3 of them. Sometimes maybe just 1 or 2 aspects helps. So yeah, I've got New Zealand at the top. All right. So yeah, let's just confirm the best and worst. So first, the 5 teams. Again, I will mention that I believe play poorly. I had at 5 North Korea, 4 Papua New Guinea, 3 Venezuela, 2 Saudi Arabia, and 1 Bahrain. And on the other side, the best, I got at 5 United Arab Emirates, at 4 Ecuador, at 3 Iran, at 2 Japan, and at number 1 New Zealand. All right. Gonna have a look at their fixtures now. Some teams are playing each other on the best and worst. For example, in the CONMEBOL, Ecuador will go up against Venezuela. So that's my 4th best and my 3rd worst for November, going up against each other. And I've got my 2nd best going up at my 1st worst. And that's Japan going up against Bahrain in March of next year. And got a best section between Iran and the United Arab Emirates. So that's 3rd against 5th on my best list. Those 2 going up against each other. You see some other fixtures there, like New Zealand in the knockout phases now in the 3rd round of the OFC. They take on Fiji. All right, that's my best and my worst video for November. I know I've released it in December. I've been on a delay. I've got some plans for next month, which I'm looking excited for. I'll be making some more videos as well. That's why some of my videos have been a bit on a delay. I am planning on making one more best and worst video for this year. and it would be the best and worst nations at the World Cup qualifiers for 2024. So I'm gonna, instead of doing it 5 teams, I'm gonna try and do it to 10. So 10 on the best and 10 on the worst. This one would also include nations that are in the CONCACAF and the CAF as well. So the CONCACAF is North, Central America, and the Caribbean, and the CAF is Africa. So I would include nations in those two. Since I started this channel, the CONCACAF and the CAF haven't played any World Cup qualifying matches so far. They'll start back in March for the CAF, and in June for the CONCACAF, they'll start back, the World Cup qualifiers. And for the CONCACAF in June, that would be the end of the second round. So nations from those areas will be on the best and worst for 2024 as well. And I'm still planning on finishing the Switzerland World Cup history videos. I've just, again, been a bit on a delay as well. And I've got a plan for making another series just before, to start the New Year's as well. Anyway, thanks for watching, listening. I appreciate it as usual. Please like and subscribe. And thanks again. And bye. Oh, and one more thing. I didn't forget about the UEFA Zones World Cup qualifying draw. I do plan on making a video for that, and that would come out sometime this week. Hopefully by tomorrow. Okay, bye.